Welcome guys to project 7. Now in this project, as you might have seen on OneNote, what we're going to do is to put some navigation in, some external navigation together with a simple header. So the way that this is going to end up looking, if I just go to this completed one here, just bear with me for a moment. Right, there we go. Make that a little bit smaller. Okay, so this is what we're going to end up with. This is the header up here, which is a very simple little design I made in Photoshop with an image and some text, and here are the links that we're going to put in. And for this simple navigation exercise, we're not going to do anything like make buttons or whatever. We're simply going to use some text to essentially make those into navigation links. Okay, so let's get started with that. Okay, so as I mentioned a moment ago, what we're going to do is we're going to put a header in. Now, a header is where you put things like the image that I just showed you with the navigation. That's a typical sort of use for that. And in HTML5 there is a header tag that we're going to make use of here. So we're going to put that inside the wrapper, and the tag is simply header. And for this we're going to insert an image. The image is the one that I made inside Photoshop. Now this is going to be inside project 7, and this is the path that I think is correct to this. So project 7, and then the images folder, and the name of the image is greenhouse header 1. With a gap in the middle, and it's a PNG file. The reason why I'm using a PNG file is that PNGs can have a transparent background. So in Photoshop I took away or made the background transparent, and as a result if we had a different colored background other than white, the image would simply show up nicely with that background color showing through. So we'll do a little bit of exercise on that in the near future. Okay, so hopefully that should work for our image, and let's just test it. Okay, so yes, that's fine. There's our image. Okay, that's now working. And let's head back now into Notepad++, and for the text that we're going to put in, I'm going to put this in a set of nav tags, because this is the tag set up in HTML5 for navigation. Now while we could just type some paragraph text and link them, I'm going to make this a little bit more like what we're going to use for most of our navigation sections in web design, and that is using an unordered list. And the actual links themselves will be list items. Now we'll put two of them in, and the first one is going to be to Greenpeace New Zealand. Let's copy that, paste that, clear up the empty space, and the second one is going to be to the World Wildlife Fund. just checking the spelling, save that. Alright, let's give that a little launch. Okay, so here is our basically the text there, and I did have a spelling mistake still there. Not sure why I've got 4 bullet points there. I just have to check on that because I didn't actually close them. And get the spelling right. Okay, run that back in our browser. Okay, now what we want to do is to style this, get rid of the bullet points, get the text basically over here with a different font, and then make them into links. Okay, let's make them into links straight off. Now, as we did with the internal navigation, we use the anchor tag for that. And if we were simply doing some testing, what we could do is we could make them into this kind of dummy link, which I think I've got right there. Let me just double check here. Just a moment. Okay. Alright, let's have a look at that. No, that's not correct. Alright, having tidied this up a little bit, so this is how it should have been. So when we're putting this link in here, we've got our anchor tag. The hypertext reference at the moment, this is a dummy text, and we're going to put the real link into this in a moment, and then close that first opening tag, and then the text you want to see, in this case Greenpeace New Zealand, is basically sandwiched between the opening anchor tag and then the closing one. So if we have a look at that inside the browser, okay, this is what we're seeing here. If we click on that, nothing's happening because it's a dead link at the moment, just a dummy one, but it does appear like a link. Okay, so let's basically do the same thing with our next one down, to the World Wildlife Fund, and let's close that anchor tag, save that, and let's refresh that. So there's our 2 links at the moment. Okay, let's actually make them into real links. So I'm going to basically cut and paste over the actual target for this. Now you could do a search for Greenpeace New Zealand and get this yourself. Let's just have a look at that in the browser again. If I click on that, yes, it's actually working. Okay, now as you might notice, when I clicked on that, it basically took me away from my website and opened up this Greenpeace New Zealand website inside that same tab that I was using for my website. Now what I would much prefer to have happen is that instead of this taking me away from my website, I'd rather that we had a new tab open. So this is what this piece of text I'm putting in now does. Okay, with target equal to this underscore blank, effectively this opens up the website in a different new tab. Should do, didn't work. Let's refresh that. Here we go. So this is the new tab that's open with the Greenpeace site, and we still can get back easily to our existing website. It hasn't closed. Okay, so I'm going to basically make that the same thing that I want to do with the World Wildlife one. And we need to actually get the proper URL for the World Wildlife Fund in here as well. Okay, better test that. Web page not found. Great. That one's working. Let me just double check one thing here. Okay, it didn't have the href in front of it properly. Let's try that one more time. Still not working. Okay, so just tidy that front bit up there. And let's try this one more time. Oh, getting frustrating. Okay, there we go. Alright, so both those links are opening new tabs and taking us to where we want. Alright, now once we've got that working, what we need to do is to style this. Okay, so I'm going to put that styling basically near the end of our current styling here. Now it's going to be about 4 different sections that we're going to style. Now for a start, we're going to just style the header, sorry, the nav region. Okay, no, actually we're not. We're going to style the anchors that are part of the nav section. Now this, what I'm putting in now, is basically saying style the anchors which are inside the list items, which are inside the unordered list, which are part of the nav section. Now I'm going to put some margin on the right of each of the anchors so that when we basically float them in a moment, there'll be a bit of room between them. And the text decoration being equal to none. Okay, this should basically get rid of the underlining, which is the default that you have, as you saw a moment ago. Font size, okay, using the font that we're going to use soon, I'm going to set that to 150%, and the color is going to be a green color that matches in with the header. Okay, now this is quite important, the float property being set to left. Okay, let's actually just go and have a look and see how this looks so far. Save that. Now, I'm not sure why that's not actually working at the moment. Let's go back and have a look at our code here again. Well, that should be working. Alright guys, just had a look at this for a while and figured out that the problem why this particular rule wasn't working properly actually had all to do with this being here, okay, which caused a real problem. So essentially that tag wasn't properly closed, I don't think. Right, so putting that in that position, okay, now if we have a look at it, okay, at least we can see, okay, there's still a problem here. We've still got these bullet points, but as we can see here, this text has certainly changed. So the rule is having some effect. Right, so let's get back to it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a font family using some online fonts again, but this is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to use some Adobe fonts, and I'll show you how we can do that in a moment. So this font family here are two fonts which are actually going to be downloaded from Adobe, the Adobe site, rather than Google when we want to use them. And this font style normal and the font weight being 600. Yeah, that's just part of the styling that I want. Okay, so to get that fonts basically in to our website here, what we're going to need to do is to import a bit of script. Now this is available on OneNote, and so I'm just going to put that in the head section, okay, but after the styling. So this is on OneNote. Just copy and paste this over, and as you can see here, there's a link to those fonts from Edge Fonts, which is the Adobe equivalent really of Google Fonts. Now if we run this now, having saved it, as you can see here, the fonts change to what I'm after here. Okay, so basically what I need to do now is I want to get rid of those bullet points. So to do that, we're going to target the list items, and what we need to do here is list style type. We need to set to none. Okay, let's have a look at that. Okay, that's looking better. We've got rid of those bullet points. Now we need to get the text here up into this position, and then this should go back to basically where we want it to. Alright, so let's try and achieve that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make use of some absolute positioning. Now one of the things we'll need to go over, I think, in class time is the different kinds of positioning, but one of them is this thing called absolute, where you basically specify the position of, in this case, the nav section in terms of pixels. And we're going to specify this, and these numbers here won't make a lot of sense at the moment where I'm getting these from, because basically I got them from working in Dreamweaver. Now the width is something which I just had a bit of a play around with, but also use some of the tools in Dreamweaver to get this. Now if we have a look at this, this may appear in the right position. Let's have a look. Okay, so notice it's appearing here, and the reason why those numbers don't seem to work for us properly here is because those pixels that we had a moment ago were basically relative to the body. Okay, so when you look at this inside your browser, this is basically, we had left and top. It was from the top left hand corner of the body, which actually is way over here somewhere. Okay, so what we want to do is we actually want to set the positioning relative to the top of the header. Okay, so this text will take its positioning from the top left hand corner of the header, and that'll be our reference point. Okay, so how do we achieve that? What we're going to do is we're going to make a rule, one rule for header, and all we're going to do is set the position here to something called relative. Now, once again, what this means is that because the nav, as you might notice, is inside the header, okay, then this becomes our reference point. The top left hand corner of the header becomes, if you like, the origin 0, 0 point. So these pixels are all now relative to the top left hand corner of the header. So having set that, let's go and have a look at it again. And as you might see, this is in exactly the position that I wanted it to get to. Now, how did I manage to get that so nicely into that position there? Did I just sort of play around with those pixels? Well, no, I didn't. I actually used one of the tools inside Dreamweaver. So I'll just pull that over here for a moment so we can see that. And this is the view inside Dreamweaver here. And I'm going to go to Design View. Now, what you might see here is that in Design View, when I click on that nav section, then we get this blue box around here, and I can actually drag this to wherever I wanted it to go, and I can also change the width. Now, this is only true for absolute positioned elements. Okay, so that's not quite wide enough. Make it a bit wider. Okay, and notice that the text isn't in the font that I want. That's only visible when you're in live view. Okay, so if I now go back to live view, this is obviously not in the position that I want. Okay, and if I go and have a look at what the code for that is, notice that the left and top have changed. Okay, and that's because I dragged it to a different position. So I'm going to go back to Design View here for a moment, and let's drag that back to where I wanted it to go, which is about that position there. Save that, go back to Code View. Okay, and those pixels, the top and left, are much more like I had them before. Okay, so let's zip back to Notepad++ here. Those pixels have changed a little bit because I changed them in Dreamweaver, and I've got both files open at the same time here. Okay, and that's not looking too bad. I think it needs to be up a fraction and to the right a fraction. And let's run that. Okay, it's a bit more like it, and that was just trial and error there. Okay, actually inside Notepad++. Okay, now getting that positioning, okay, is a lot better and a lot easier to do inside Dreamweaver. But you can, with a little bit of trial and error, also in Notepad++. Okay, just try different numbers there until you get that positioning right. But don't forget, you really must make sure that you have that dual relative absolute positioning if you're going to make use of this. Okay, so let's have a look. Is that basically finished now? Yes, I think it is. So let's just drag that out of the way. Is there anything else I need to do here? No, I think that's actually about finished now, folks. So we've got that navigation in the position that we want using some external fonts. Okay, so that's all now completed.